Yeah, so Sunday morning, 7:30, grabbing some coffee, going through the day, going through the week, recapping this week, and then kind of planning as we go into the next. We just had a couple storms here. It's been an eventful storm season in Arizona, in the valley specifically. So a lot, like 7 days a week right now, or storms like that come through, there's a lot of meat on the bone. There's a lot of work to be earned. And every day, it's a 7 day a week thing when a storm hits or storms hit like that. And I think a couple tips for when a storm hits. Obviously our market in Arizona, every market's different. So, but when a hailstorm hits or a windstorm hits, everyone goes into probably the same mode, which is boom, you're on it, your adrenaline hits. And a couple things that I kind of reflected on this storm season was, one, the importance of starting really early and maxing out all your daylight. Time is just of the essence, even more so now than it ever is before. And sometimes that means 7 day a week deal, sun up, sun down. It's obviously not like that year round because weather's sporadic. The second tip I would say after a storm is just focus on yourself. Focus on, don't think about what other people are doing. Don't think about other people's success or lack of success. It's just what other people are doing is irrelevant to what you have to accomplish. And you hope everyone, that's worth their salt in the industry does well. I think that's a healthy way to look at things. Obviously, you want to be the best and you want to be the one that gets the most, and which of course, it's competitive in that regard, and that's one of the things that makes it fun. But don't pay attention to what other people are doing, and definitely don't play the comparison game. And this is a really important point here for this point number 2, is that don't compare yourself to other people, regardless of where you're at in your sales development. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned veteran, don't compare yourself to other people. The only thing that matters is what you're doing for your customers, the effort, the attitude, the energy that you're putting in. That's it. And then just let the results come. Is referrals during a storm. I think a lot of people miss out on how big a good referral system can be during a storm, any kind of hailstorm. Because let's say this is a Dan Walrack principle, and it's something that Dan Walrack does really, really well. He's probably the best in the country on this. It's more difficult to do with a windstorm, but with a hailstorm, you could do it every single time. And it's where once you earn a customer's trust and you earn their business, you have to ask, can you introduce me to this neighbor? What neighbors come to mind that you think I might be able to help? And if they trust that you're honest and they trust that you're going to treat them well, they're going to want you to work for their friends and their neighbors. They're not going to want their friends and neighbors to potentially run the risk of getting caught up in some riffraff. So they're going to want them to work with you, right? So I saw a lot of people that would earn a customer and then they would just start driving around kind of a larger area. And it's more like, hey, once you earn a customer during a hailstorm, you're better off staying kind of right there, right where that was, right? Because that there was legitimate damage there. The size of the hail, what it impacted around the home. Again, maximizing your time, right? That's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to generate a substantial amount of more business. The fourth thing I would say, and this is the final thing, is that the beautiful thing about hail compared to wind is that if you do have a customer or a potential customer that's maybe a little hesitant about a roof inspection, which is reasonable. I've always said this, it's a reasonable objection for a homeowner not to allow a stranger on their roof. That's a reasonable thing, right? If someone's drawing a line in the sand on that, that's fine. What you can do is that hail impacts a lot of different things, right? It impacts metal awnings, it impacts window screens, metal fascia board wraps. It impacts all kinds of different stuff. So, you can literally just walk a homeowner around their property and you can show them what the hail did as opposed to even potentially climbing up on the roof, right? So understanding being well versed in how to do scope assessment. Being a professional when it comes to hail, I think I've always said that I don't think people need to be a roofing expert in order to quote unquote sell roofs, but it definitely helps to know what you're talking about when it comes to hail damage and having a good handle on it, and you know, knowing the difference between that and a blister, and knowing how to measure spatter, and knowing how to identify proper collateral. Those kind of things can really help you, and of course help the customer understand what happened, right? But those are just some kind of initial observations that I have, and I'd say the big one is just don't play the comparison game after a storm. Focus on yourself and focus on your customers, focus on your guys. But other than that, let it play out the way it's going to play out. The only thing that you can control is your effort, your attitude, your energy, those kinds of things. And I would say as kind of a bonus tip, don't be afraid of getting tired. I think if you're thinking about an analogy of like working out and training, a lot of people are afraid to really get tired, really get like super tired where you blow your lungs out, you feel like you can't breathe. When it comes to outside door-to-door roofing sales, like, don't be afraid to get tired. Don't be afraid of the B word, the burnout word. Don't be afraid of getting tired after an event, after a storm event. You really do, especially if it's close to Christmas time. You just want to sprint through Christmas. Christmas is right around the corner. Everything's going to come to a full stop at Christmas. So exhaust yourself. That's a good feeling, and it's something that you can 100% take pride in during that time. And I suppose a second bonus tip, right? More stuff coming to mind, is that just because a storm hits doesn't necessarily make a roofing sale easier. You still have to go through the process. You still have to sit down with the customer. You still should sit down with the customer and explain what's going on. You still should explain why a deductible is owed. All of the same process of initially onboarding that customer is just as important during a storm as it is not during a storm. And skipping steps will cost you deals. It will cost you customers. Customers still want a good discerning homeowner is still going to want you to sit down with them. So even though there's 15 other homes to sign right around the one that you're at, or that you just earned, love the one that you're with during that storm and during that moment. And that will pay off too. Yeah. So those are just some, immediate post-storm observations. Take it for what it's worth. It's always good to reflect, always good to see what you could be doing better every day and what you did well. Find your silver linings, find the positives. Don't get too hard on yourself about the negatives. Just make the adjustment, and that's where the growth happens. That's where the level up happens, is that if you're constantly evaluating yourself to grow. So doing recaps, doing reflections, those kinds of things make a really big difference. Hope you got some good value out of that. As always, reach out, especially if you want to work with me. Definitely looking for, good, level-headed, clean-cut guys that are looking to grind, guys that are looking to learn, guys that are looking to grow, and especially guys that are looking to make a change. That's the fun part. Links in the description. Or if you're not in Arizona and you don't want to move to Arizona, you're looking to get for some mentorship, some guidance, some coaching, some support, click the link below. Launching a really cool program that's going to allow for some virtual support, some virtual coaching, where you get access to me, access to my business partners. Hope to talk to you soon.